welcome guys. We wanted to get together today to have a chat. Obviously the company are signing the Armed Forces Covenant. We want to show what that means to us all, for veterans obviously from different eras and stuff. So we thought it'd be nice to get together, have a little bit of a chat, and then let the company know why we've done it and what they can show to us to help with this. So from there, probably the best way to kick it off is a few introductions. So we'll start with obviously the more senior. So we're going to go to this lovely gentleman on my right. Tom, if you'd like to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background and stuff like that.
Tom Rigby, and I currently work in legal and contracts for Amoria Bond. My military background started in 1975. A great summer for weather, as well as 76, where I joined up as a junior soldier, raw 16-year-old, went to Ripon in North Yorkshire, and then subsequently Strensall in York. And then I joined the Queen's Lancashire Regiment in 76 and served continuously through to 1999. The latter 5 years was spent in the Adjutant General's Corps, which was a compulsory transfer.
Just to pause you there a second, Tom. Obviously the people watching this are not all military, so
That's right.
What's the Adjutant General Corps for there?
The Adjutant General's Corps was a corps formed within the military to bring all administrative and logistical elements together in one big corps, and that was formed around about 1992.
Brilliant.
Year I was born.
Really?
Yeah.
Right, yeah. I reached the dizzy heights of Warrant Officer Class 1, and I left of my own accord, service done, 23 years, 146 days in 1999.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Few civilian jobs after that, and I came, 2 civilian jobs actually. This is my third, and I came here in June 2015.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Should go over to you, Max.
I'm Max, I'm 22. I joined the army at 17, joined the Irish Guards. I did 4 years, went on tour to South Sudan on a UN peacekeeping mission. I left in June this year, had a security job for a few months, and I got in contact with Helen, one of the TA extraction people here, and I work for Amoria Bond now.
Nice.
But, short and sweet.
Come on, big lad.
Yeah, so I'm Scott. I'm on the US contract energy team. I joined probably about 2 years ago, 2 or so years ago. Just did 2 years. Was in the Royal Irish there. That was pretty interesting time. Crazy bunch of people.
Absolutely.
But now I've just done the same as you. Came out just in the start part of the summer, and just found myself at Amoria Bond or CMC, so to speak. So it's a completely different time.
Environment.
An environment, being inside all day as opposed to
nice
outside.
and warm.
It is a little too warm sometimes, but
Yeah.
I can't complain. So it's better than being cold, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm married. I did 6 years as a Royal Marine Commando, joined up in 2006, deployed out to Afghanistan in 2009. Whilst on tour in Afghan, obviously, I was in a vehicle that ran over the top of an IED. I sustained quite a few injuries. We'll probably come on to that with some of the questions we've got in a little bit. Medically discharged in November 2011. Didn't have a clue what I was going to do. The Royal Marines was my life, loved it. From there I've gone on to do some pretty interesting and some varied things. I was a personal trainer, typical Royal Marine, you become a personal trainer. Close protection, looked after some famous people and some very, very rich people. From there went on to become a professional golfer, did that for 3 years, left professional golf, became an indoor skydiving instructor, first amputee in the world to do that, which was pretty cool. But then I decided to chuck myself off a mountain bike and injure myself, couldn't instruct in skydiving anymore and had to get a real job, couldn't find a real job, so ended up in recruitment. I was quite lucky. I came for a role as recruitment as you guys, but I got asked to join the TA team, which was quite a nice ask, and I've not looked back since, loved it.
Yeah, good.
Obviously as I said at the start, we've signed the Armed Forces Covenant now to show how much the company wants to support its veterans and the military and stuff. But I had the slight idea, like you guys are a bit surprised with it this morning, but I had the idea to approach some of the people within the company, because obviously this is to educate why we've signed it and what it means to us as different generations and stuff. But obviously I wanted to give the people upstairs a chance to ask their questions about our time in. So I've got a long list, should I say? So yeah, I'm gonna go through them. We'll just put them out there, like just chat about them. They're all going to be pertinent to each of us, apart from one which is obviously directed straight at you, Tom.
Thank you.
So we're going to start with that one, I think,
Can't
Tom.
We'll start with that one now.
Yeah, why
Kick
not?
off with
It's
the
the only one on the list that's directed to an
okay.
individual.
That's nice to know.
Yeah, Tom, somebody's put it down on here. Do you have what are your fondest memories when you look back on your time served?
My fondest memory, I would touch on two things there. One, and first and foremost, and I think you'll all agree with this, is the camaraderie. It's second to none. There's no place like it. Everybody has each other's back, and so on. You once you've left, if you don't keep in touch, you miss those friends immensely, and so on. Secondly, was probably one of the roles I had throughout my career, which gave me immense pleasure, and it was I was in the rank of sergeant, and I was the orderly room clerk in the Queen's Lancashire Regiment, and you dealt with all aspects, administrative-wise, of discipline within the regiment, closely with the adjutant and the RSM. For those people who don't know the abbreviations, RSM is Regimental Sergeant Major, the Senior Warrant Officer, and the adjutant is the CO's Commanding Officer's Personal Staff Officer. And I worked closely with them on all aspects of discipline within the unit, and dealing heavily with court-martials and things like that. And I have to say that is the most rewarding job I had. I had to leave it because I had to move on. I was promoted, which was great, but I did miss that job immensely. It gave me numerous hours of pleasure dealing with all aspects like that, and it's vitally important because your attention to detail had to be perfect. Your paperwork was wrong, you were in for it because your trial wouldn't go ahead, type of thing, and so on and so forth, and everything that trickled down ended up with you, But yeah, that was it. Really, that was two aspects of my career, really.
Spot on. Probably a good place to start after that. We go back to the beginning. So what were your motivations for joining the military was one of the questions that got put forward. So obviously it's got to be different areas and stuff like that. So we'll chuck this one out to the younger guys. What was your motivation for joining?
Well, I remember growing up and watching obviously Afghan happening on the news. I can't remember, there was a show on BBC Three, I think it was called Our War or something, and it was like headcam. You probably remember it. You were probably involved with it. It was like headcam footage.
You were probably on.
It was headcam footage of people in Afghanistan. I remember I used to watch it all the time, and I used to go. That's what I want to do when I'm older. Obviously, by the time I was able to join Afghan and finished, but I remember when I was doing my GCSEs, the Manchester terrorist attack happened, and one of my oldest friend's sister was involved in it. And it really that's what sort of drove me, because I was so wanting to do anything I could to sort of bring the people who'd done that to justice. So that's sort of the main thing for me, because obviously happened when I was 16, and within a year I'd sort of signed the paperwork and I was joining.
Yeah.
So that's for me. So there was sort of growing up watching Afghan, and the Manchester Arena terrorist attack was like the main two things for me.
Yeah, all through that as well. I think that is the thing, especially as young lads, you sort of watch it and you think, you want a piece of that. So yeah, Dad did 22 years. So that was quite a big one. I remember as a child, I sort of moved all up and down the country. So I've been sort of Larkhill. God, I can't even remember. To what's it called now? Near Larkhill. There's a few, isn't there? begins with B.
Bovington or something like that.
Bovington.
So, yeah,
That's
Bovington
the
down
one
there.
Bovington, yeah.
I spent a bit of time at Bobby.
Up in Newcastle, was there.
Houston.
There's, we're literally all over we've been. So like I was born in Shrewsbury because that's near where he was at the time. My sister was born in down in Salisbury, so that was another place. And then obviously over in Germany where he was stationed there for a couple of years. So I've been sort of integrated into it from a child, and then yeah, it was just always something that I knew that was in the family and I wanted to do. Just got around to sort of joining a bit later than I thought, but obviously just life takes over, doesn't it? It's what you want to do, and then so I'm glad I sort of went for it. I think the motivation was always there, and I think it's just having the right time to sort of go and actually right
definitely.
now is the right time.
I think like that's crazy as well, because like for me, obviously your motivation growing up to join's my war kind of thing, and that's why we wanted to get together to do this, because like it is weird getting from them different backgrounds. And like when I joined, I wanted to be a professional rugby player growing up. Thought I made it. I was playing for Leigh Centurions, broke my collarbone in 3 places, got let go, realised sport's quite a fickle kind of industry, and decided to go and get shot at instead, which is probably not as safe. But when I did my research, like my granddad had been in the army, so I knew it was always like some passion of mine. Growing up, like watching Top Gun and stuff like that, you wanted to be a fighter pilot, then you'd watch a war film, I wanted to be a soldier, typical kid. But then, yeah, like Iraq kicked off, and I knew I had that calling that I wanted to do it. But because we were in Iraq at the time, I had to research it and saw that the Royal Marines do like the longest, hardest infantry training in the world. So I thought, if I'm going getting shot at, I want the best training to do it. So I joined the Marines, and then passed out, luckily as an original, which is quite a tough thing to do. We started with 32 lads and there's only 12 of us left at the end. But like it is crazy, and like knowing like your reason for joining, but then you come full circle again, like your friends, was it your friend's sister who was in the arena bombings? Like obviously when I lost my leg in Afghan, I got asked to go and do a motivational talk for the worst. They put a rehab package for the worst survivors of the arena bombings, and they asked me to go and talk to them to show them what you can achieve after losing limbs and serious injuries. And like I was petrified of it. Like I talked in front of auditoriums with students, in companies, thousands of people, and I was going meeting what was something like 25 people in a room, but because I thought, not knowing what happened properly at the arena, I thought it was all going to be kids. And I had to make my wife come with me because I was petrified. I was like, I'm going into a room. I chose to go to Afghan, chose to join the Marines knowing that that's a choice. I'm going telling a load of kids that have just gone watching a concert, having fun.
That's right.
And I was like, but when I walked in, what I didn't realise with the arena bombings is, the bomber set the bomb off in the foyer. So it was mainly parents waiting for the kids, which isn't brilliant. It's not by no means a good thing, but it's nice to know like it's an older generation rather than kids just enjoying the time. So yeah, it was like I took like to this day it's probably the hardest talk I've ever done, but it shows you again like where down the line we are all connected. So what about you, Tom?
We are. I mean, I had no real aspirations to join the military when I was 16. I just didn't have a job. And it just came over me one day. I'm going to go. I'm going to join up. And initially, I hated it. Mum, they're making me shave.
No, it's not many of us do that now.
And so on. But yet again, overnight, after a period of time, that came over me. I'm staying here, I'm making a go at this, and the rest is history, you know. But what I will touch on, there, bringing into conversation what you said before about different eras and things like that. About 2008, I attended a funeral of an old colleague over in Liverpool, and there was a handful of us in the bar afterwards, and we were just chatting along. And what we came up with, actually, we considered we had the time of our lives.
Definitely.
Because, and I'll tell you why, because all we had to deal with was Northern Ireland. Don't get me wrong, that was dangerous. that was dangerous at times. But that's all we had to deal with. We didn't have Iraq, we didn't have Afghanistan or anything like that, you know. That's all we had to deal with. Yes, we had the Falklands in 82, but there was nothing else going on at the time, which were, Aaron will probably appreciate this. So, you know, by the time you were 21, in your era, you could have done 3 tours of Afghanistan. Is that correct? Yeah, something like that. You know,
6 months there, 3 months home, 6 months back out there.
So I consider, you know, from 75 to 99 at the time of our lives, and so on. Yeah.
No problem. Well then, guys, the next question we got was, what was the most challenging experience you have personally faced during your time in the forces? Go on, Scott.
I'd definitely say just when you're absolutely just drench wrapped, and you know it's just challenging, isn't it? It gets into your head. I think that really tests you when you think about what you're doing when you're just outside, wet, miserable, cold, and I think that is a real sort of psychological, because you know it's going to end, and you know there's going to be like a time when you're going to get dry, or you're going to get out of the rain, you're going to get under cover or whatever. And I do think it's just miserable, but it's just it's definitely like a challenging one. But I think it's always something at the time it's not great, but then after it's a good laugh, and you can always have a good chuckle at some of the people who are. There's always somebody. I always thought, you know, when you'd be out and you'd look at someone, there's always somebody worse than you. Yeah. I think so. It's challenging, but also at the same time, I think that's a lot of things I would say with the army is it's like a 50-50. You know, it's difficult, but it's fun because it's difficult. So I think if you like that sort of challenge.
It's always one of them, though, you know it's going to end, don't you? But you just don't see the end coming.
And it's like, I think it's all of that's just in your head. But when you sort of, you've done it before, you can go through it again, and it's rewarding in the same time that it's challenging. So
when you see an exercise coming to the end and the coach is there to pick you up, and you're yomping or what, tabbing, that's what you guys call it, innit? And you see that coach, and you come around that last corner, and you think, yes, it's here. And then the coach drives off, and you're like,
and then you see a
load
of
stretches and logs come out.
Stretches and logs, that's the worst thing, and you just...
I'm with you there, mate. It's horrible, isn't it? Max.
See, Joe, there's some like training things that I thought were harder, like some things I did in battalion that were harder, but then the thing that I think sort of psychologically was probably a bit harder was when I went to South Sudan. Obviously, we was in a refugee camp, and it's the world's poorest country, so it literally is, you know, the poorest people in the world. I remember before I went, my mum was like, Joe, there's worse things than seeing people die. And sort of just like seeing people, literally the poorest people in the world, every day, like, who have nothing, just sort of going about their lives. That's not really as much as nothing like you can do. Like, your kids coming up to you asking for water and food. And so there's literally nothing you can do for them. So probably just that, because there was nothing I could do actually to help them. So it was just sort of seeing people like living in poverty, like surrounded by it for 6 months basically.
Yeah, definitely.
So
How about you, Tom?
I think that sort of just goes on your
couple of things really. One would be the challenge of getting a certain aspect of it right, and I will hark back to my days as chief clerk of 6 UDR, which is the Ulster Defence Regiment, and put it this way: if you got through a tour as chief clerk of an Ulster Defence Regiment battalion, 2.5 years or whatever, without any casualties being inflicted, you were lucky. And I always remember the first one we had, I got the call from the adjutant, right, get yourself in, we've lost one. And the challenge of getting all that right, who do we inform, get the CASREP right, get everything right, and so on and so forth, you know, especially the first one. You know, I don't want to say tongue-in-cheek, after that they became like the norm, because I was fortunate we didn't have that many. But it's just the challenge of getting the thing right, because it's vitally important. There's nothing's wrong on anything like that whatsoever. And secondly, I would just say a bit more light-heartedly, it was coping with 40-degree heat in the Gambia on exercise. Going there on exercise for a week out there. Well, we were there for a month, but the whole exercise took a week, going through everything and all sorts, and it was just a searing heat of 40 degrees.
Disgusting, isn't it?
And none of the modern equipment, and anything like that, if there still is modern equipment in the army, I don't know. We have the heavy old webbing on and things like that, and the rifle, you know, not the SA-80, the SLR, and so on. In fact, I had the GPMG, so that was. That's a general purpose machine gun for
Still in
for
use-
who
still
wants
in
to
use
know
today.
that.
Yeah.
And it's a fine weapon.
It is
fine
a cracking
yeah,
weapon,
yeah,
but weighs
yeah.
a ton.
Yeah.
13 kilos.
So that's basically from my point of view. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like mine's probably gonna be a weird answer for my toughest time, because you'd naturally probably think, like, obviously getting blown up's not an easy time, but like it was kind of out of my hands at that point. I didn't really have to do much about that. I think the hard bit was like not Afghanistan yourself, a bit like what you were saying, seeing the locals, like wanting to be. But my hardest part was knowing, like, when the lads got blown up and we had to carry on doing a job, or the fact that I come back to the UK knowing I can't do anything to help my mates anymore. But they didn't know whether I was back in the UK within 24 hours, and they didn't know whether I was alive or dead, but I had to carry on with what we were doing. We were on operation. You've got to get the job done. You can't just stop and worry about it because one of your lads has gone, but then I'm the other end of the straw on a helicopter knowing I can't do anything. I'm coming out of the war zone and out of harm's way, and my mates are there and I'm not there with them anymore. And then when you hear the stories of lads getting hurt while you're not there, that's probably the hardest bit to deal with, because you know, when I was on the ground, my mates came to me and put me back together. I can't repay that favour now, and that's probably the toughest part we had. So moving on, probably this is quite pertinent to what we're doing and signing the covenant. How did you find it adjusting back to civilian life? Because obviously we've all been. You can serve for a month. You can serve for 6 years. You can serve long term like yourself, but
It's very difficult.
you get institutionalised, don't you?
It was very difficult because one thing what hits you straight away, take employment out the equation. One thing what hits you straight away is your house. You've probably come out of the military, you've bought this house and everything like that. Good grief, I've got to do that now.
Yeah.
I've got to do that now. I've got to do this now. Can I just ring the estate warden and send somebody around and get that done? You know, to the property or whatever. It's all on us now and me, and plus you've got to pay for it as well. There is that aspect to it. Employment, I found quite difficult initially, and it took me about 9 months before I got a proper job. Getting in there with the interview techniques and everything like that, which was obviously vitally important, because it took me so long. I obviously wasn't getting things over to them right, you know. So I found it quite difficult initially, but once I got settled in, that was fine.
I mean, can't agree with you though. Like, obviously, I only did 6 years, not the dizzy heights that you did, Tom. But like, you go from your accommodation's paid for out your wage every month, your food's paid for out your wage. Obviously, you knew your area. Just as I was leaving, Page Your Dine came in, so you had to start having some responsibility paying for your food.
Plus, you're top of the tree, you're the boss.
That's the thing,
and you're not anymore now.
No.
You know, nobody out there cares what rank you were or anything like that, or whatever you were, or what you did, you know.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, all my money at the end of a month were just pay tokens when I was in. Like, everything else is taken care of. You're out on the lash every week. So when you come out and I joined at such a young age, really. I didn't know how to do my banking. I didn't know how to pay my bills. Like until I'm quite lucky that my wife back then, my missus, like, she sorted me right out because I was paying bills and didn't even know what were coming out of my bank. And we got together and she was like, what, are you paying this for that, really? And she sorted it all out for me and then started educating me on it, because you never really, like, I think there's more support there now as you come out, but back then that weren't there. It was just like, see you later, thank you. And I come out in the big bad world as an adult, a lot more mature than I went in, and you're like, right, well, where's my beer tokens gone? Like, what am I having paid for this? I've got, like, what's going on here?
Yeah, what's council tax? What?
Like, it's mental. And then, like, work-wise, you jump from, from a lot of my mates I know that came out around the same time as me, we've had that many jobs, and you look at, like, now working talent attraction, I look at CVs and see people that bounce from job to job to job like I did, and you're like, and yeah, like, you look at my CV, it looks quite impressive with some of the things I've done, but you've still gone from thing to thing to thing, because it's like you can't settle. And if I look at a CV like that in talent attraction, you're like, well, they don't really hold the job down.
Yeah,
but,
it tells you.
You start wondering. Whereas that's kind of like with the Covenant again, like what we want to do and what we're trying to put on like a workshop for veterans, because it's like you said, you come out and you were 9 months before you got a job because your CV's militarised. It's not civilianised, so they don't like you read it and you've got amazing things on there, but to Civvy it means nothing. But if you translated that into Civvy terms, they'd be like, wow, we need this guy kind of thing, like, and it is learning that, but it's also educating like the staff, and hence the questions and stuff on what we've done, what it means, and how they could, like, the managers when they interview a veteran, like they'll see through them gaps and be like, actually that I was told by Aaron about that, or Max told me this about that, and that's really impressive actually, and like let's get more. Scott did that, like that's really good, or likewise with Tom, and that can then start building that environment where we're getting really, because from all the things we've said so far, like the getting wet and cold, you're resilient, like you're the most trainable people on the planet, we go to the most hostile places and stuff, but like adjusting to that civilian life is really tough, because civilians don't see the same thing as we see, and that was probably, that's probably the biggest challenge that there is, I think.
Well, I think obviously, given I'd sort of not done straight from, what did you say, 17, you went, so I obviously went 10 years after that, I'd sort of, it was, like I say, I'd sort of been in work beforehand, and I'd sort of held down obviously like a career beforehand, so I found it like I could go back into it, but you don't want to, because that's not what you want to be doing, do you know what I mean? So I think I've been quite lucky, obviously ending up here. It's obviously we know how good it is here, so it's quite a good fit. I think I'm probably quite lucky. I think we spoke a couple of days ago, and you said, average, you might bet 2 or 3 jobs, when you leave the military within a year, because you're still trying to have that finding of your feet, which I think do have doubts sometimes and things like that. You do, but there's no job in civilian world that's anything like that. So I think you'd always start questioning it and comparing. But I think adjusting is just something that some people take. I think it will go just in sort of time served. The more you are, because like you say, institutionalised, where it just becomes your norm, it becomes your daily life, and then trying to revert back to, like you say, doing your own things, paying your own bills. I remember, I think it was about £46 a month that used to come out for my accommodation, my bills,
so cheap,
automatically come out
out of my wages. So we were on the sort of pay as you dine sort of time. So we would go to the cookhouse and we'd sort of have breakfast, lunch and dinner sort of all paid for. Sorry, not paid for. Sorry, all out, and then we'd just pay as you dine essentially.
Yeah,
that's wrong.
Really good.
It was always
parade.
It was always
Queen
paid for you.
The
Queen paid for your breakfast.
So
because it was a chargeable offence if you skipped your first meal of the day.
It was.
But nobody ever got charged for it.
No,
it's still hungover.
No.
Go on.
What about you there, Matt?
Well, I've got to be honest, I never at the Scoff House. I was not doing any of that. I had a George Foreman in my room, so I was doing chicken and rice every day. So I thought it'd be dead easy, because I never saw myself as like institutionalised or anything like that. Because I've done me 4 years, and I'm not really. Do you know what I mean? I didn't feel like I was a soldier. The hardest thing for me, I think, was just personally, is that you don't really think about it, but life has moved on. People back home have moved on. They've They lived
Yeah.
how 23 years, 7
Yeah.
years, do you know what I mean? They've lived
Yeah.
their life without you.
Yeah.
So like, I'm going to mates, oh yeah, we're going out on a Thursday night. They're like, I've got work tomorrow. But to me, that was why you go out on Thursday night and then you rock up to Commanding Officers PT on the Friday
Hanging.
and you got to do it. You know, you're phone up and do you know what I mean? But you're loving it. But to me, my mate's like, no, I've got to be in work at 11. And I'm like,
11.
yeah, 11. Sorry, I've got to be. I was doing 10-mile runs at 8 in the morning. Which,
Yeah, you could always tell them who'd been out on a Thursday night because they'd be throwing up
Yeah.
on Friday morning halfway around.
yeah. But yeah, so no, personally, that was the hardest thing for me is that you know people, your family, friends, everyone's just moved on. Not moved on, but like lived their life without you
Different
being
stages.
there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So
Different stages.
they're not going to bend their like routine around you. Do you know what I mean? They don't. It's just not going to happen. Which was sort of probably a bit naive to that happening because when I left, we was all schoolmates. And then obviously everyone's got jobs, got girlfriends, whatever. And then professionally, yeah, just like what you said, Tom, about the. Like I remember someone saying to me before I left, you know, you put all this stuff on your resume about, oh, you know, you could have been sniper, you know, sergeant, you've gone for selection, done all this stuff, whatever. It doesn't mean anything to, unless you have someone like who's a veteran on the TA team. It doesn't mean anything to anyone. They go, yeah, you're a sniper.
So what?
And what?
Yeah,
What is that?
exactly,
What?
yeah,
That's
yeah.
what
What
they
does
don't
that
understand.
bring to you?
Yeah,
They don't
yeah,
understand. So
yeah.
I was told that usually what you've done in the military to show that it's resilience. Like you are dedicating, you resilient. You can show me you're patient. You've got that sort of. Yeah.
I think, from my point of view as well, I'll just add on to that. As well as initially being a soldier, I was once many years ago, because everybody has to go through that process, haven't they? I had the added advantage, really, as well, of having an administrative background.
Yeah.
So
It's easy
that's the
stuff,
type of jobs I was looking for,
Yes.
and things like that. You know, and eventually once I got my foot in the door, somewhere, fine. You know.
Yeah.
It's hard when
yeah.
you're infantry in it because infantry, people.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
well,
it's
yeah.
people see it as you've got no skills.
Yeah.
You're just a frontline soldier, but
First thing you don't
Yeah.
like, but you don't have a trade, do you? Like,
Nah, it's-
That's right. Yeah.
like
yeah.
when you tell, like, if you look at my CV from, it's a little bit different now working TA. I know what I need to be putting, but my first CV when I come out and I put everything I'd done in the Royal Marines. That's one of the reasons I did like personal training and close protection because
Yeah.
it's the only thing that was relatable.
Exactly that same
And
security
you're like
job, yeah.
reading what I did in the Marines, and you're coming out and you're thinking I was like one of the world's elite soldiers, and now people are looking at me like I'm nothing.
Yeah.
And that, like, yeah, it's tough. And like you say, when you come home, I found it really weird that everybody I went to school with were all still friends with each other. They were all still seeing the same, and it was like land time forgot.
Yeah.
Like they were all there, still in that same bubble, and I come home and I was a completely different person
Yeah.
than I was then.
You were the weird one.
And
Yeah,
it's
you
like
weird, yeah.
it's a bit strange, but so yeah. Next question. Quite like this one. I'm quite excited to ask this one and see how you all respond. But during your time, how do you think you were viewed by society?
Oh.
So obviously now we're going 3 different generations. So it's going to be quite interesting. I'm going to chuck it over to you first, Tom.
I think at the time, throughout my period in the military, we weren't as well appreciated as we are now. And I don't know the reason for that, to be honest with you. And because now there's much more focus on the military, isn't there? I think so anyway, you know, and you speak to people and you tell them you're a veteran and everything like that, and you go, oh, you know, how are you, you know, what we talk about and this and that and the other, but throughout my period, I didn't get that. I didn't feel as we were revered as much, you know. Whether it's a society change or what, I don't know. I just don't
Well, that's
know.
quite interesting that though, because like obviously when you were around when the Falklands were happening, and you see all the videos of the lads coming back and people on the
That
cheering them on.
period is slightly different.
Yeah.
I would go to Northern Ireland and everything like that, where certain sections of the community, well, it goes without saying, doesn't it? I get that at the Falklands. Yeah, most definitely during that period. But as a whole,
yeah.
I don't think so as much as they are now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, going from that then, we'll go to the now. Like, what do you think? How do you guys feel?
Scott, you can go first, Scott.
Well, we'll go both. But yeah, I would say I think there was I think there's a certain reluctance. Like there's definitely like viewed for highly. I think there's just a very reluctance when they sort of get involved now, and I think that's the reason why they don't want boots on the ground. And I think it's sort of the public or society just don't want it 'cause they see the things that have happened over the last 20 years, and they just don't want it anymore. But I think that just goes down to sort of that it's a good thing. They're viewed quite highly in society, and they don't want to put sort of British lives in danger. So I would say that it sort of translates into quite a good thing, and I think it's a good view. What about yourself?
So when I was in 2 barracks in my time in the army, and the first one where I was after I completed training was Hounslow. I don't know if you know Hounslow. It's really, very, really, really diverse. And we were not like there at all. That camp's been around. Florence Nightingale did her training at Cavalry Barracks in Hounslow, and it's shut. It's been around for like 300 years. It's shut now.
Closed now, is it?
Yeah. Then we moved. So it's a really diverse area, and I felt like because of maybe Afghanistan and Iraq that we were not welcome in that community. Every time I was on the front gate, people was throwing stuff over, walking past, driving past, doing gun fingers, everything. There was actually a pub down the road, which I don't know how true this is, but apparently there was like a terrorist plot planned at this pub, literally 400 metres down the road. Obviously the Lee Rigby thing was like really, even though it been like 6 years. When I was there, it was still very much like do not leave camp wearing any military suit, even t-shirts, anything that would indicate don't wear poppies out. Like if you're going out, you really need to be careful when you're leaving camp of who's around the corner. So I felt there we weren't valued.
You see, and that's in your era.
Yeah.
In our era, most definitely like that, because of the IRA threat, you didn't leave camp or anything like that. I didn't know that actually in your era.
No, So,
I get the outsiders to a certain extent, not liking living next to a barracks and things like that.
Yeah.
That's always gone on, hasn't it?
Obviously,
No, I'm quite surprised at that. Yeah.
But, was it Woolwich Barracks?
Yeah, that was where Lee was.
Lee Rigby.
Woolwich Barracks.
Like I always find it funny because in London the tube is free if you're in the army or the military, but you have to be wearing your military uniform, which you're not allowed to leave camp.
Which
wearing, so
it's counterproductive, isn't it?
But then the flip of that is when that camp shut down and moved to Aldershot, which is military garrison, loved, obviously because everyone there is military family. So I saw sort of both ends. But I say as society in general, I would probably say that we're not really. I'd still say we're not really appreciated. I don't know what the reason is.
If I can put in again there, guys, and we've just sadly had the funeral of our monarch, Colonel-in-Chief, and the way that was performed was, I mean, there's nobody in the world can do anything like that whatsoever. And people have been asking me, because they saw it at Prince Philip's funeral as well, where they carried the coffin up the steps and everything like that. And I said to these guys, I says, look, these guys have been at it for weeks. They probably do that as a matter of course. You as an ex-guardsman, it must have been a training programme to do a military funeral, is it?
So my mates did do the funeral. They didn't carry it. That's something called Queen's Company. One of my sergeants in training, he was part of Queen's Company at the time. He's writing it now, and their job is basically it's a company, but there's only like 6 or 8 of them, I think. And the company commander is a Queen, though, for the 6 of them. And their job is to carry the Queen's coffin. So I think they were saying they were in Iraq when the Queen died, and then straight back because their ultimate goal is to carry the Queen's coffin. You have to be like over 6'3" or something, and then, so they will have done training. But I never personally did that kind of training. But but they were straight away doing like 16-hour of drill every day, going out doing drill at 3 o'clock in the morning in London because it's the only time that the streets are free. So that's.
I think you know the country sees that and how proud they are of the military to a certain extent. I get your point 100%, you know, but on the other side.
Yeah, and
it's
yeah.
like watching Troop in the colour.
Exactly,
Isn't it?
yeah.
It's perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
isn't it? You know.
Yeah, I think you're right. Actually, I didn't really think about that. Like, there is times of the year where people do. Like, obviously, Remembrance Sunday.
Remembrance, yeah.
So it's good that people do actually have a bit of
Yeah.
class and don't. Do you know what I mean? So they do go no, fair play.
Yeah.
Sorry, no. What do you
Yeah,
think,
no,
Ryan?
Matt, like, I'm kind of in the middle of the both of you there. Like, when I first joined up and lads were coming back from Iraq and Afghan, when that first kicked off, we were getting called baby killers, we were getting spat on in the street, stones thrown at us and stuff like that. And parades through town, like people were just abusing the lads. But then, obviously, the Son and Help for Heroes was born, and I find it's across the board with everything. It's how the media portrays us at the time, I suppose. Like,
Yeah, definitely.
once Help for Heroes became a big thing, mainstream media got all over it. We went from being these child killers and murderers to these heroes, and and what people didn't see, like when the Afghan war first kicked off and stuff, they'd hear all the bad stories coming back, but you didn't hear how many lads had been injured.
That's right.
You always hear about the lads who get killed, but like they say, it was, I think at one point in the Afghan war, it was to every lad killed, there was 10 lads injured.
Yeah.
And them injuries are severe injuries. So
Correct, yeah.
it was a weird one for me. Like, we had the same, you're not allowed off camp in your uniform. But now it does feel like, I think like with Tom saying, like the newer generation, you see it and you think, like, because of what we did, it was a different time. It feels like the respect's been earned and now it's given kind of thing. But then you have your own challenges with society to this day, like not as many people are pro-military these days and stuff like that. So it is tough, I find, and it's quite interesting to see like how you thought like it'd be a lot different now, and then you're saying the same thing, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to get this together.
Yeah.
So moving on to the next question, lads. A bit of a sad question, to be honest. People always ask similar things though whenever I've done talks and stuff. So, did you lose many friends during your time in the forces? So we'll go with the younger guys first.
I didn't know anyone who died on. Personally, didn't know anyone who died on operations. When I was in South Sudan, my battalion, our battalion got split in half. Half went to Iraq, half went to South Sudan. Whilst they were in Iraq, there was a rocket attack. I don't know if you remember the start of 2020. Obviously, COVID and everything down there. Americans and Iran were having a bit of a tussle. So basically, our camp got attacked by what they think was Iranian rebels, and there is a medic called Lance Corporal Brody. She died. One of our officers, Lieutenant Brewer, Second Lieutenant Brewer, he got injured, and then a few Germans and a few Americans got killed as well. She was part of the Irish Guards battle group. I didn't personally know her, but she was a big thing in our battalion. But mainly for me, I knew people that was just suicide whilst they was serving in the Irish Guards. That's probably more the common one nowadays. It's just suicide, and there's a lot of training accidents as well. Actually,
happening a lot at the minute. Isn't it?
I don't know about you, Scott.
Nothing. Obviously, whilst I was in there, but I know there has been some like training accidents. Like you said, there's a guy up in Yorkshire Regiment who's on the training area, and I think he was in a tank there. Nothing. I can't imagine. Obviously, just given the time frame and with sort of Afghan ending, I think it was op pitting when the paras went over and they sort of got everyone out. That was the sort of, I guess, the last sort of thing which would have been notable if there has been any casualties, and there was obviously a couple there, but again, nothing from our side.
Yeah, how about you, Tom?
Yes, not personal friends, but colleagues. Of course, we did a 6-month tour of West Belfast in 1987. We were hammered from day one. We actually lost one on the first day of operational there, and again, not personal friends, but knew of them, if you know what I mean. And but with all due respect, they're still one of your own.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
it hits you to a certain extent. I can remember the exact moment. I was in the intelligence cell for that tour. The field intelligence officer was with us, who worked closely with the CID of the Ulster Constabulary, and he was on the phone, and he just turned around and looked at me. He said, "You've lost one," and that just hits you, you know. And, any time is bad, but the first day as well on operations is bad. But not personal friends, but colleagues. And
definitely.
It's they're one of your own, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Obviously, for me, it's slightly different. We, during our time, obviously, we lost quite a few lads over that period of time. One that stands out to me the most, probably, definitely worth a mention. Two. Jason Mackey was a good lad. I went through training with him, deployed with him. He was on the same tour I got blown up on. But the main one that sticks in my head, and it's a bittersweet story. Rob Richards, really good lad. I think he was on his 7th tour of Afghanistan. Where I got blown up, he got blown up. Same road as me, 100 metres further on. And made it back to the UK, but died in hospital, unfortunately. But literally the day he died is the same day, probably, well, it's quite a few years on, but my little boy was born on the exact same day he died. And my boy was due 2 days prior and came late and came on the exact same day. But the lad who died, Rob Richards, is the lad who saved my life. So it's like I'm not superstitious, but there's something in that story. So it's like a really bittersweet day for me now. But yeah, we'll move on from that one quickly. So probably a good one to go with off this would be, why did you leave? Go on, Max.
So for me, I think, the difference between me and you, Tom, definitely is when at the time the Falklands was like 3 million people in the army or something like that. Yeah, something. Now they've cut it to like 60,000. So, it's my battalion. It's a dual role, but it's an infantry battalion going to do infantry fighting. And we got re-rolled into like a training battalion to train foreign armies how to fight. And then the other half was getting re-rolled into just purely ceremonial. So I was like, I'm definitely not doing the ceremonial one. And then I was thinking, do you know what? Even if I got put in the training team, I didn't join the army to train another army how to fight. So it's I mean, but it's just through like government cuts really. So I basically felt like my battalion was getting the life sucked out of it, which is, it's a bit. I mean, it's happened to loads of battalions where they just battalions have been around for hundreds of years, just gone, merged into something else and just gone. And I didn't want to see that happen to my battalion. It's been around for 120 years. I just didn't want to see all that history clash, because unfortunately I think that is the way the Guards is going. I think it's just going to get amalgamated into the Guards, or the 7 regiments just. And it's just everyone loses the identity of the battalion. It's a family. It is. It's a family.
It's so sad. It's happening.
Yeah, it happens all the time. So that's why I left. Because my battalion got re-rolled, and it wasn't something that I joined the army to do. Yeah. So
I think just saying on that, I think that's what they are doing with infantry units.
Yeah,
I think it's just going to form under one infantry.
Like in America.
Yeah. Like I remember.
That's the Adjutant General's Corps. That's an American, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. There you go. Like obviously, I don't know. Well, we've all sort of spoken about it, but I think mine's sort of like cut short. It's not what I wanted to do. I think I wanted to do the 4 years rather than the 2. So you kind of feel like you've been sort of kicked out, as opposed to sort of wanting to get to where you were. I do think I probably would have only done the 4 years though. I think given my age and I definitely would have just done the 4 years. I think you're in a very serious job, but you do awfully get treated like a child sometimes. It's quite a strange position to be in. You're trusted with all this equipment, this basically a key role essentially. You could be dragged away for war, like you say you would be, but then you are sort of treated like a child. So yeah, I think that would probably be the reason why I would have left if I hadn't left how I did. So I think it's just, yeah, it's definitely I think the way things have been run, and I think you probably know that from a recent thing that you know, a lot of guys who are sort of, you know, 10 years in now, they're all wanting to leave as well. They're just not happy. Lots of changes, and I don't think it's positive. I think there's been too many cuts, lack of, you know, funding on certain things as well, and it's just too many squeezes. But again, you know, you've taken. I don't even think we can be classed as a sort of like an army now. I think it's more like a defence force. It's under 100,000, which is really sad to see, because I think 20 years ago we were on 130, 140,000. So to have had those numbers cut in half, yeah, I think that it does put a lot of strain on, you know, being inside. Obviously, advances in technology and sort of the uses of technology does sort of deem less risk of putting people like ourselves, especially infantrymen, in that sort of position. Obviously, there's always going to be a need for boots on the ground, but yeah, I would say that's probably a driving factor. Would have been sort of, you know, don't want to stick around for to be the last sort of ones in it, I guess.
Just get squeezed out anyway.
Squeezed out, yeah.
So it's just.
I mean, I could look at the options when I was due to leave. One, do I apply for a short service commission? If I do, am I guaranteed to get it? If you're guaranteed to, if you get it, you're only guaranteed perhaps 3 years before the system changes again. And the system was changing then when I was in there, you know, it's and so on. Do I go on the long service list? Do I want to be posted anywhere in the world on the long service list? Do I? I don't know. So I decided, time's right now. At 40 years of age, you've much chance of getting into civilian life than you have in another 5 years down the line. So that's why I pulled the pin when I did, you know. Because you apply for commission, you're not guaranteed to get it.
Exactly.
You know.
So I'm a bit like Scott in a way. The fact that like I had my career taken away from me.
Yes.
I joined the Royal Marines, and in my head, it's easy to sit here and say I was in for life. I wanted to go for selection, which for people who don't know, that's for the Special Forces.
Yeah.
I always had it in the back of my mind, but it's easy to sit there and say it when you know you can't do it. So whether I'd have done it, I don't know. But yeah, like mine was cut short in my prime. I was medically discharged, obviously. I lost my right leg, dislocated both my knees, broke my femur, broke my hip, dislocated my pelvis, broke my back, ruptured my spleen, and broke my collarbone. Oh, I had a little cut on my chin.
Just a little.
Yeah, well, apparently when I come back, like all this side of my face was covered in blood, and when the nurses cleaned me, my family thought I'd lost all my side of my face.
All right.
And then when the nurses cleaned me up, it was like a little shaving cut on my chin. So I've never been able to leave it down. That's why I grow the beard now, just to try and to hide that one. But yeah, no, it's like obviously I got medically discharged, and it's a bit different coming out. Like I still speak to the lads now who are in, and they say it's not what it used to be. But it never is going to be. Like things change. Like we're not fighting as much as we used to, and like there's funding goes different places and stuff, doesn't it? So it is. I feel like I didn't just have a lucky escape because I got medically discharged, but I also feel like I had my career taken off me as well. So it was a tough one for me, but I like to think I've done all right since.
I'll just butt in there.
Yeah.
Aaron, sorry. What I will say is we've known each other now, for just over a month or so?
Yeah, probably
perhaps.
now.
You mentioned Special Forces.
Yeah.
I think you'd have made it.
Thank you, mate.
Definitely.
I've just known you for a month. I think you'd have made it.
I'd give it a good go, but I know lads.
Daring lines.
I know lads who went SBS, and it's not.
You'd have gone SBS instead of SBS.
Yeah, it's natural progression for
of
all.
Course, yeah. So who's the best?
The SBS, obviously. But yeah, it is a tough little number. Obviously, it's like the guards and stuff. When they talk about the Royal Marines, we're like guards. We're smart as guards, but twice as hard.
Guards para that.
Just had to throw that one in.
That's the guards para.
But yeah, no. Moving on to we've got to start wrapping this up. I'm very conscious we've took up a lot of your time off the phones and stuff. One good question probably to go with what we've been doing recently at the office and stuff. We've had a lot of well-being and mind things, and the company's a big advocate of that. So people have been asking, like, what kind of mental health support did you get when you were leaving? And obviously, like, the services that were available back in your day are probably different to nowadays. Mental health wasn't a bit, like, I know personally in my time it weren't that big a thing. Like, when I got discharged, I didn't get, like, you meant to get the trim training, and I just got sent on my way, and I was one of the lads that had been blown up, so like, if I didn't get the mental health support, like, the lads who were fighting and not getting blown up definitely weren't getting it. But like, how about your era? Yeah.
Zero. I can correlate that to an incident I was involved in. I'm not going into detail, but I was involved in an incident in Omagh, in Northern Ireland, and it was quite serious. All as I got, this is when I served with the Ulster Defence Regiment, and all as I got from the commanding officer, not to my face personally, but I knew he'd said it because someone told me. They were teaching to come in at that time in the morning, wasn't it? And there was nothing. But on the other side of it, as I mentioned before, I was serving with the Ulster Defence Regiment, and their welfare system was second to none.
Really?
Yes.
Back in the day as well, yeah.
Yes. I was surprised when I went there, because the rest of the British Army, to me, the welfare system just didn't exist.
No.
It didn't exist whatsoever. You just got on and did it, get on with it. But they had a welfare system over there for obvious reasons, for losses and things like that, and so on. And it opened my eyes. It was good. It was good for them. You know, very, very much so. But as rest for that period of time, the British Army regular soldiers, there's
like,
little or nothing.
Yeah, we were all Marines, and it was always that you're all Marine man up, like, you don't, nothing affects you, like, you've got that green lid on your head, like, bullets bounce off you, so just crack on. How about you guys, like, modern day?
I still think it's very much the same in terms of that. Oh, you just man up, just sort of like, you know, you're meant to be in the infantry, and it's blah blah blah. You just crack on, and I think that is probably, which is a constant driving factor in mental health issues for people who do leave, because they've kept stuff bottled up so long that they just don't know what to do.
That's right.
And that's when things start to spiral. So yeah, I think there is definitely more to be done there. I would say sort of in barracks, they did have quite a good, you know, welfare lady. So we come visit her tea and biscuits.
Joe Padre?
Yeah, Padre, yeah.
Yeah.
It's that sort of thing, yeah.
Well, the Padre was always there, of course.
Yeah. So I would say I think there's improvements to be had just across. I probably would say across, obviously, everywhere in the services. But yeah, just given obviously some of the things like you said, you what you received from what you'd encountered compared to the people who weren't injured, you know, and they might have seen that 10 times over.
Yeah.
So you know, what is that sort of effect?
What the effect? I'm guessing you'd echo similar.
Because I never felt like I needed it, but the hard thing for me, and also when us and the Iraq lot came back, was lockdown. Lockdown was happening for a week, we didn't know what COVID was. So we came back we'd been away for 6 months, come back, lockdowns happened, and I knew personally a lot of people, especially on the Iraq side, who, so what had happened, were really struggling, and just due to the fact of lockdown, that they didn't necessarily have the resources available. When I was leaving, I didn't need it. I remember getting asked, I don't know, you do paramedical. I remember there was a lot of mental health questions, like, do you have nightmares? Yeah, there are services, definitely are services there. Like I said, I never felt like I needed it, but I'm there's DCMH or something like that, I don't know, it's Defence Centre for Mental Health, I think it is. I know people who went to that. But yeah, no, there's definitely more services now. But
I think
it's offered as offered, but it's not sort of pushed. I think it should be pushed more.
I think it's a great question as well, because it's so much in the forefront of everybody's minds at the minute. Like, from my era, there's lots of lads that are committing suicide, but not just from the military, it's civilian. I think as a company, that I think, like, I feel like we do very well with that, because we do our mental health wellbeing sessions. I got approached the other week to become a mental health first aider. We've already got 2 within this office, and I'm taking up that purely as well because of with us signing the covenant, and we're trying to bring more veterans in as well.
Brilliant.
Like I can be a like point of reference for them if they need a chat, because obviously I can understand where they're coming from a little bit better, but also there to help anybody within the office, and I think as a company we're very good at that. But I just want to finish off, lads, and get your opinion on what your thoughts on and what does it mean to you for us to have signed this covenant? What does it mean, like from the company point of view? How does that make you feel about the company? And
really good. I hope we do actually follow through on it, because I obviously when I left, you think me leaving industry, you're having to do security, police, fire service. They're the three options, and obviously all three of them, especially the police and fire service, have signed the Armed Forces Covenant. And so that when I applied for the police, applied for it twice, just straight rejection, just complete rejection straight away.
Not much camaraderie in the police as there is in the military.
But
with all due respect.
There's some places obviously say that they have it and don't really implement it. So, but I felt very lucky that when I spoke to Helen, obviously she knew you, she knew sort of just because that personal phone call, she knew what I would sort of bring to the team. So I hope, it's a good thing. Yeah, basically, I hope it brings more veterans because they have a unique skill set that can be helpful in recruitment.
I think it's recognition as well, isn't it? Like you say, you're on board, Aaron, there. You're obviously on the lookout for all the CVs, what pass your desk now, and things like that for ex-military types and so on. But it's from a company point of view, it's recognition as well, which is fabulous. I mean, there's little of it, I think, these days, and some people will pay just lip service to it, but not get involved and not be a box ticking exercise. Good.
Yeah, I would say the same. I think what we're trying to achieve by signing it, and what we want to do for people who are leaving, sort of them sort of workshops that you touched on earlier. I think that's for me that means a lot, because I think I've been quite lucky to have a sort of civilian side before, so I'm sort of quite set. But say someone like yourself, don't want to use you as an example, that might be clueless. I'm not saying someone who might, might be clueless, sort of gone in straight out of school, 17 years old. They might do 8 years, come out at 25, not a clue. So I think how to structure your sort of CV. And just that sort of just how to sort of act in an interview, as opposed to how fast can you do the bleep test and how many push-ups and pull-ups can you do. I think that's a really strong thing we can do, especially from like our side as recruiters, and as also just for the right people, because that's what it is. So I think I'm really on board with that.
Well, I think for the covenant side of things, like you say about young kids coming out and going straight, like I came out in 2011 and it's now 2022, so 11 years I've been out and I've still been clueless. So it's nice to be in a company that actually cares and is willing, and like I can vouch for it now, like I'll be on board with it. Natasha, who's headed it up for me, she's got everybody on board that needs to sign it and run with it, and I can guarantee, like as a company, with everything we've done and everything we do, it's not, we don't do things by halves, no matter what it is. And Natasha, who I've been speaking with, and we're both proactively, and she said to me, if we are going to sign this, I don't want to do it by halves. I want to make sure we uphold it, and we make sure we do everything we can to carry out our promise. And it does mean a lot to a lot of people upstairs walking around this morning, getting the questions for this today, and speaking to people and telling them why we're doing it and stuff, and the amount of support from the office and the company as a general has been amazing. So I can personally vouch for we will see it through, and
excellent.
I'll make sure I'm doing everything I can from my point of view, and again from you guys getting on board, helping out, and I much appreciate it. Again, for you guys, if you need that person at any point, you know where I am. Come and give us a shout. Yourself, Tom, we can nip down the dressers for a pint, can't we?
You just want to go for a beer.
Cheeky pint.
Absolutely.
But finally, just want to say a big thank you, lads, for coming on here today and being open and honest with us. And I know some subjects aren't quite the easiest, but I appreciate your time, and we'll have to do it more often, lads.
Yeah, definitely.
Most definitely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers. Yeah.